Wuzhou, all of my data points are spilling off my canvas or my window. So, they don't fit. This is where the map command from p5.js would come really handy. So what is the map command? So if we go into reference, and I've opened it up here, but the map command essentially remaps a number from one range to another. And it sounds like a really a concept that has nothing to do with our problem at the moment, but I'll kind of borrow an analogy from Karen Ann, who is our project mentor, about how we can imagine or can visualize this function. So the map command is like this. Imagine you had a rubber band that goes about this big. Now imagine that you put a dot in that rubber band there. Now imagine if that was the same rubber band, but we stretch it. And so now the rubber band becomes more like that, right? So now the rubber band is stretched, and that means that this dot would not be there anymore. But because it's been stretched, it would be sitting probably like somewhere here. So this is kind of how the map command works. The size of this rubber band is the first range, and so let's say this is like 0 to maybe, let's call this like 10, right? And then when we stretch it, it goes from 0 to, let's say, 30. So now where would this dot sit? If this dot was at, say, 8, then this dot would technically be at 24. And it works the other way around as well. So if you have like a really large range, so that goes from 0 to 30, and then you want to squish it into a range that only goes from 0 to 10, and so how does that relate to what we want? We have the y positions of our data set to be larger than our canvas or our window, meaning we actually need to squish it down. Imagine that right now our canvas, like the top and bottom ends of our canvas is like this much, right? So like this and this. Right now our data set, like our data points visualized on the sketch, is getting drawn too long and it's surpassing the canvas. And we want to squish it down into just that, and so that it could fit. And so how do we do that? The formula for using the map command is written here. So map, and you want your value, and then it goes start 1, stop 1, start 2, stop 2. The start and stop ends are basically these. It's like 0 and 10, and then 0 to 30. And so this is start 1, this is stop 1, this is start 2, this is stop 2. And so now I'm going to want to map basically the y positions of these, and we already know that this is kind of the formula that we have for the y positions of each data point. So I'm going to make that a variable instead of having to like type this all the time. Let y position equals that. I might just like replace it on all of the rest as well. Y pos and y pos. Cool. How do I determine at which point this starts and which point this stops? We all know that this starts at the y margin, which is 20, which is what we specified, right? Because if the the data starts at I equals 0, so like we see in our console, because it starts at 0 here, so that means this would be 0 and it would only leave us with 20. And so we know that the start point is 20, but we don't know the stop point. How would we know the stop point? Well, we know that the I travels all the way to 101. So we can actually say this: let y stop equals y margin plus 101 times 20. This is really manual, but hopefully that makes sense. We're just trying to gauge what is the furthest that this goes, that this list, what is the furthest y position that this list goes. We don't have to visualize it or anything, we can just ask the console y. So where does my y position stop? I refresh this, and it's going to give me 2040, great. And so we know that the y position goes from 20 to 2040. And so let's start building out our map command. And so let's say new y, which means the new y position. with everything squished down. The new y is map. Now what do we want to map? We want to map the y position, which goes, so let me open this up. So we want to map the y position, which starts at 20 and stops at 2040, and map it to, let's see, and map it to where do we want it to fit into? What's the new range that we want to give it? And the new range that we want to give it is the top and bottom of our canvas. And so we can say and map it to 0 and window height. Right? Because that's, so 0 of the y-axis would be there, and window height would be the very bottom of your window. Hopefully this works. And so now all we have to do is use this new y position variable instead of the original y position. So actually, I'm going to try just like putting it next to each other. So maybe I'll put this at like 400, and then I'll put this new y position. And so that way we have the list of circles that was the original line of circles, and then we have like the new set of circles that are placed at the new y position. And so I'm going to exit that. I'm going to run this and see what happens. Great. So very messy, very overlappy, but what we're seeing is actually all of the data points within the parameters of our window. I can change this, so it doesn't have to be like from 0 to window height, because we're seeing that that's like cutting off at the very edge and at the very edge. So we'll give it a bit of a margin. We can say from 20 to window height minus 20, and so that gives us like a good 20 pixel margin at the top and bottom, hopefully. But we'll see everything even more squished down. And so in this case, they definitely need to be a lot smaller in size, so maybe I'll just give it like a 6. So I'm not saying that this would be like the finished product. Hopefully this becomes useful, and you can use the map value in other ways, in not just position, in color, for example, or size, or other visual elements that you can play around with using the map value.